Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sports on I40 podcast. We are here this evening. We're going to hopefully go through some interesting topics as well as go through the recap for the Kirtland Central versus Gallup Bengals Girls State Championship for New Mexico. And hopefully you get to enjoy and see some different basketball over in New Mexico. I know a lot of us get caught up in the Arizona basketball, but there's a lot of good basketball that happens elsewhere in the country, and hopefully we'll have a better idea of what's going on out there, and hopefully you'll enjoy this presentation as well. But before we start, I think we should kind of talk about the tournament that happened this weekend here in Holbrook, the one that we had mentioned in earlier podcasts. It was a nice little tournament. The weather sort of messed it up a little bit. Kind of the schedule at first.
Yeah.
We had a big storm in northern Arizona and did shut down I40. But regardless, they were still able to continue to do the tournament. And there were a lot of good teams that came out, and it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think in one of the videos I seen, Nate, one of the guys for NAS Soldiers that put up the tournament, said that they hosted about 102 games, I think he said. Something like that. So that's a lot of games, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they played about 6 different divisions, I believe. And yeah, so there was a lot of participants, a lot of teams out here, and I know some teams didn't show up and all that, but there was still a good presence of players out here. It was cool to see that.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to do the books for a few games as well, and it was my first time ever doing that, so it was fun to participate in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And as the tournament went on, we didn't do a lot of games. Maybe I think we did 3 games the first day on Friday. I think 3 games the next day, and then 3 games on Saturday. So didn't do the whole entire tournament, but got to do a few, and it was a neat learning experience, and got to see some familiar players from the 3A North that came to participate with some club teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it appeared that they had a lot of fun. Who ended up winning the boys? Was it 14 and over, or I'm not sure what the upper division was.
Yeah, the high school was the highest division they had. Gunners won that one with AZ Nest as the runner-ups, and Gunners have a stacked team. They have the main player Tyler Tabaha and some of the boys from around Holbrook. It's like Holbrook boys and then some Flagstaff boys, some Coconino boys and Flag High boys.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a pretty good mixture of boys, and they played good. AZ Nest were more like the Winslow players and a couple of Flag players. So yeah, they had a really good team too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I noticed that the young Gunners, right? Is that their team name?
Just Gunners.
Oh, Gunners.
Just Gunners, yeah.
Yeah. I think Tyler Tabaha's little brother was playing with them as well.
Mm-hmm. Tristan.
Yeah, he came in and towards the end, and he was shooting some threes for them.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. My aunt LA showed up on the last day on Sunday and was able to provide some emceeing as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard she was there, and she was good, man. She was announcing the games and kind of talking about some of the players and all that too. It was good to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had just finished the 4A or New Mexico 4A state championship for basketball. I think she finished it on Friday, and she came back on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So she was kind of telling me about the games there, and she told me that there was the pit had a lot of fan participation for that game.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend that also went over there to watch, and they were telling me that it was a lot of, I say almost packed.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't exactly 100%, but it was pretty close to that. And he said he showed up early, but he didn't show up early enough, I guess.
Wow.
Uh-huh. But anyways, yeah, that whole state championship thing, kind of brought up some interesting questions. My friend and I were sort of talking about that, the participation of Kirtland Central and Gallup, and just sort of how their division compares to Arizona's 3A basketball. And I know that Gallup and Kirtland Central are in the 4A for New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think if you look at it based on enrollment, I believe maybe Kirtland Central and Gallup, I guess maybe they would be like a really big 3A school or maybe a really small 4A school here in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I think that it prompted me to kind of wonder sort of the talent, the range of talent of New Mexico compared to Arizona. And my aunt had always told me that she thought New Mexico basketball was a lot better than Arizona basketball. I've never really seen a whole lot of New Mexico basketball, so I really didn't really know exactly if that was true or not. I mean, obviously it's in the eye of the beholder. But I think this year in particular, I think she certainly does have a point. And the conversation that I had with my friend earlier today kind of made me wonder if the 3A North is an overrated conference. And what I mean by that is this year, we had Chinle, Tuba City, Page, and all of them didn't really perform very well in the playoffs. Page was in the open tournament, but I think you could argue that Page made it simply because Chinle and Sholo, or Chinle and Snowflake, didn't want to make the open tournament championship. So Page was just kind of the only one that kind of got to the championship, because Page wasn't exactly the best team from the North. I think they finished in third place this year.
Yeah.
So they certainly weren't the best representative for that particular game against Phoenix Country Day. But regardless, though, just at the 3A state tournament, you had Chinle that continued to move on, but they ended up losing to Payson in the semifinals. And one of the problems I noticed with Chinle earlier in the season, it was that they were very vulnerable to losing close games. To me, it just looked like they had really bad. They could have moments of really bad shooting, really bad turnovers, and I think that really manifested itself in the second half of the Payson game, where they gave up that, was it like 15-point lead or something like that. So when we talked about New Mexico basketball in particular, I was told that Kirtland Central played Page earlier in the year and beat him by, I think, 20 or 30 points, something like that. And I get what they're saying about that game in particular, but like I said, Page wasn't exactly the best team in the 3A North. And I think Winter Rock played Gallup this year as well.
Yeah, they did.
And I think Winter Rock didn't do very well against Gallup as well.
Yeah, they had Chinle play against Gallup, but for the boys only. They didn't not for the girls though. I thought that would have been interesting if they had played them.
Yeah, so to me, it just seemed like the competition was really down this year for the 3A North. And like I said, it prompted me to wonder if 3A North was overrated this year. And it kind of makes me, if you think about it as a whole, when you have a league in which like 25 straight years, you have a North team in the state championship, or a North team consistently in the semifinals or the state championship for the girls division specifically, it just kind of makes you wonder if the competition is really that bad in the 3A, or if the girls in the 3A North are truly doing something revolutionary to maintain that consistency. If you look at the 4A, for example, I did mention in the last podcast, I really didn't think there was a huge difference between 3A and 4A. However, the best teams in the 4A did not play in the state championship. They moved on in the open tournament. So I guess even the 4A state championship didn't necessarily have the best representation of the best teams. But regardless of all that, though, I really think that, and I guess you can disagree with me, and also I don't think anybody would ever do this, what I'm about to suggest anyways, but I was kind of thinking maybe they should move the 3A North and East girls division. They should move them into the 4A division and have them play in the 4A, and then move the 3A North and East boys to the 2A, because the 3A North, or the 3A division for boys, is extremely competitive. It's so competitive that, what is it? I guess he had Winslow winning in, was it 15? 2015. Then he had Holbrook that won, I think, in 12 or 11.
Yeah.
And then before that, the last team was, I think, Tuba City in 2002 or 2000, or the year 2000, something like that. I know that Gray Hills made it the year after, I think in 2001, I think it was. But they lost to Rio Rico. And then even before that, I think he had, Monument Valley in like 1997 with Bobby Mannheimer and
Brian Holiday.
And then before that, I'm not really too sure who happened before that. So it's extremely tough. It's an extremely tough division for boys. But for the girls, I mean, you could go back even in the 90s. I think Winter had a big, they had the successful decade in the 90s, right? Even in the 80s, I think the Winter was really good. I know that Holbrook was kind of always, Holbrook girls have always sort of been consistently kind of in the middle, I think even in the 80s.
Yeah. Holbrook boys had a pretty good team way back too, I think. Back when Mendoza was coaching here.
You know, if you talk to the citizens of Holbrook, like especially the ones who've been here for a really long time, they really talk about the 70s and 80s with this nostalgia, because I think at that time Holbrook was very multicultural. They had a lot more participation with the in-town students specifically, as opposed to now. I think it's most of the sports, I think maybe other than baseball, maybe are like, majority Native American students. But you have, basketball today at Holbrook, it's exclusively Native Americans.
Yeah.
And I know there are a few younger players, the in-town players who are not Native American, that are, in the freshman or in 8th grade, that are going to be moving up into the high school level. So it's not going to be exclusively Native American for long, but there certainly was, more in-town participation with these sports. Because if you look at that time, I know, Holbrook today still does play like Show Low and Blue Ridge, and I know that, those teams are also really tough, especially in football. And well, they still are tough in football to this day. But so to me, I think moving the boys to the 2A might be more appropriate, because I feel like there would be in the same kind of level with the 2A as opposed to playing in the 3A, which is just, they do really, these teams do really good amongst themselves, but when they have to go to the state playoffs and they have to play teams that are, bigger and faster, it's just really tough. And every now and then you'll have anomalies like Monument Valley last year when they made it to the state championship against Valley Christian. Even for them, it wasn't an easy run for Monument Valley to make it to that point. They needed a lot of luck and a lot of things to go their way to make it, right? But I understand they'll never do that, because obviously it would be more expensive for the schools to try to schedule two different schedules for two different leagues. Having the girls go somewhere else and the boys go somewhere else, it's just not economically feasible for them to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think for the girls it would benefit them. Boys, I'm not so much, man. I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. But I think it's just the difference in like teams like Valley Christian and some of these big schools that can pretty much almost recruit. They got schools that have a tuition and all that, so they get so much more benefits than teams like out here in public school and all that. So I kind of think maybe they should more categorize them differently rather than put some of our teams in different classes. I think they should categorize like schools like that are like charter schools or something like that into their own division. I think.
Yeah, and that seems like it's more plausible. I mean, every 2 years they evaluate football, for example, for player safety. I think that's one of the reasons why Snowflake got bumped up to 4A because they were just so dominant in their league. For basketball, I think maybe they should take that into more consideration. Like Valley Christian, maybe they should have moved them up into the 4A this year, as opposed to leaving them in the 3A and then giving them their own tournament. Basically, it just seemed like the AIA just created the copper bracket just to appease big school or private schools like Valley Christian and Yuma Catholic, just to appease their, I guess, so they can distinguish themselves from the 3A because they're not quite good enough to be in the 4A, but they're so much better in the 3A. So they're sort of in this middle space there where I don't know, they don't really have a discrete home to be at, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it just seems like a school like Valley Christian, at least these past couple of years. I'm sure it'll change once their team graduates. I'm sure their attitude will change because then they'll have to rebuild. But it just seem like they want to distinguish themselves and don't really want to be a part of the 3A. But I guess that's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too, and Mac and I were talking about this earlier this evening. I kind of thought that maybe all the schools on the Navajo Nation, maybe they should consider leaving the AIA and maybe joining New Mexico's playoffs or New Mexico's sports organization, because the AIA, it's an organization. It's like the NCAA. It's not some kind of official thing where you're in Arizona and you have to be here, type of thing. It's schools can opt out if they wanted to and form their own league. And the reason why I think maybe the Navajo Nation should consider leaving the AIA is because I don't think the AIA doesn't really care too much about the Native American schools. If they talk about it, I'm sure they'll come on television or in the newspapers and say how much they do, and they really care about just all this stuff, like a politician would. They say one thing, but behind closed doors they do something else, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the AIA, when it comes to these 3A North schools specifically, all they really care about is the revenue they generate at these playoffs, right? And other than that, they could really, to me, it just seemed like they would really care less as to put these teams in an environment where they could really have these students grow and maybe give them an opportunity to showcase themselves to a more broader audience. And it seems like whatever money they generate from the 3A North, they just use that and put it towards the 5A and the 6A, where these premier Division I athletes are at. It's like I don't know, it just, to me, it seems that way, and I just don't think the AI is really pursuing victory with honor by doing that. Like, for example, this year they had the copper bracket, but then they had every state playoff game be at the higher seed until the semifinals. And what that really did was it made it so that the AIA didn't have to rent out Tim's Toyota Center. They didn't have to pay all that money to rent it out, but instead forced all these schools to host the playoff game, which, I mean, I guess it's nice that a home team gets to host a playoff game. But if you really think about it, I honestly think the AIA did that because 100% of the revenue for those tickets for each one of those playoff games goes straight to the AIA. So it was like, instead of renting out Tim's Toyota Center and spending all this money and it kind of being a mystery of whether or not we can make our money back based on how well the North teams perform, why don't we just have them all host their own game and we get 100% of the revenue without having to pay the fee for these facilities?
Yeah.
And to me, it was maybe like, I mean, I'm sure if you ask them, they'll probably say something like, well, we had the copper and the scheduling and blah, 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 blah. But I think they could have done it. They easily could have had a Tim Toyota Center type of event or venue to do it.
Even like the semifinals too, it was like a week prior than the championship games or some of that too. And most times it was like the same weekend. All the Final Four games and the championship game was all the same weekend. But It's different this year.
And you can tell too, like I was talking with a fan from Holbrook during the week. I want to say it was the second round or the first round of the playoffs. They had a storm that was going on in Arizona, and Winslow decided to play a day early.
Yeah.
To travel down to wherever they played at to play a day early because of the storm. Whereas Holbrook was hosting the game, but it was like, if it was that easy for Winslow to reschedule their game, why couldn't they have just played Holbrook girls and Holbrook boys on the same date?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just seemed like it was separated so that they could get the revenue for the girls and then get the revenue for the boys.
Yeah.
So, you know, what is it? Is it like if the AIA is going to generate all this income, they should, you know, put that money towards an environment that'll benefit, you know, these young men and women instead of, you know, putting them at the Arizona Coliseum. You know, maybe if you put them in a time machine, they go back 35 years or whatever, then it would be great. But now it's, and you look at New Mexico and, you know, they still play at the Pit, a nice facility there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Arizona, we have the Footprint Center where the Phoenix Suns play. We have Glendale Arena, which is, it's not even being utilized. No one's using it for anything other than concerts, I think. They have the stadium or the basketball gym that ASU plays at.
Yep.
And then if they wanted to, they could move it to Tucson and play at the McHale Center.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could, you know, do Tim's Toyota Center. They could do NAU Skydome.
Yep.
Right. Instead, they pick that old building down there. What they call the Madhouse on.
Yep.
The Madhouse on McDowell.
McDowell.
Yeah, it definitely is a madhouse because there's all these homeless people and everything around that area.
Oh.
You know, so to me, like I said, it would be. I wouldn't blame these 3A North schools for wanting to leave and pursue a different conference that'll benefit them more rather than staying with the AIA. And I think if these 3A North schools use their leverage and sort of said, we want better terms if we're going to stay in the AIA, I think it would force the AIA to make capitulations.
Yeah.
In order to appease that.
And they got the biggest fans to say something like that too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They got the biggest backing for winning schools and all that.
Mm. So yeah, I think, you know, I think they should do that, and hopefully, you know, it'd be a better benefit for these young men and women who work hard. It's an extracurricular activity, you know. I don't know. There's a lot of criticisms that can be made for the AIA, and I see a lot of it like on Twitter or X, you know, people saying things. I think there was an issue with the 1A, how the AIA sort of structured the 1A playoffs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's the AIA has been around for a long time. I don't think they really have any excuses for why, you know, all of this is going so badly.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it just goes back to how much are we going to make on this? Because, you know, we got to pay the AIA director $300,000 to do nothing all year and, you know, be a nice face to the state of Arizona for all this.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a good thought that people maybe should think about, you know, because it's just kind of awful to kind of see it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what we were originally going to do here, so we're going to talk some more about this, but I do want to sort of, speaking of NFHS or whatever, we are going to, you know, show a little bit of the Kirtland Central versus Gallup Bengals state championship game. So, yeah, I heard it was a really good game. I think the final score didn't necessarily reflect it. I was hoping that this game would be a nail biter, that it would come down to maybe 1 point or some kind of last second shot. But I think the winner, you know, won it decisively at the end. You know, But while this is going, we can kind of talk about it some more. I think it'd be a good idea for these teams like Kirtland Central and Gallup to maybe expand their horizon by maybe trying to play some of the top tier 4A schools in Arizona. I don't mean Flag High. I mean something like Mesquite or I don't remember who the number one ranked team was for the 4A, but they went pretty far in the open. Just to gauge how good their players are. The other problem too, though, I see is my friend had mentioned that Kirtland Central beat Page earlier in the year. I think the only way you would truly know is if you were to put all these North teams into the same division conference as like a Kirtland Central, so that they have to play them twice. They also have to play the other teams in their thing to truly know exactly how good a program is head to head. Just one game, that's just a snapshot in time. Maybe one team had a really bad day. You just don't never know, right? However, though, I think Kirtland Central would have dominated anybody in 3A North this year. I think they were probably good enough to win the 4A girls state championship as well. Not the open, but just the 4A state championship specifically.
Against Flagstaff or someone like that.
But at the same time, I think Phoenix Country Day would have beat Kirtland Central and Gallup by 30 points because I think Phoenix Country Day was just that good.
Yeah.
Phoenix Country Day, they beat Flagstaff pretty good as well. So the same thing with Sandia. New Mexico, they're such a small, like a rural state, and their enrollments are so small. Their biggest school is like the size of the small, or a really big 4A school. Whereas we go to Phoenix, there's like 50 schools with over 2,000 kids in each one of them.
Yep.
So it would just be interesting to see, these schools sort of expand their horizon and try to see what's out there. And I know the top schools in the nation, they do try to do stuff like that. Like they'll travel across the country to play a certain school.
Yeah.
Like remember LeBron James's team from Ohio? They did something like that back then.
Yeah, they played in California a lot.
So it's not out of the question, So it would just be good to see if let these young men and women see where exactly they stand.
Yeah.
And maybe the argument would be, well, they can just do it in the AAU, for example. I mean, I'm sure you can get the same thing in the AAU, but that's, to me, the AAU it's summer basketball. It's not exactly, it's not like this, I don't think. It's not like actual, team competition. It's more of to me, it's like more of like practice or just to keep things moving. I mean,
like a recreational tournament or whatever.
Because I was watching this tournament this past weekend, and it just seemed like they weren't really practicing. They were just playing. No one was trying to do anything to try to improve their game. It was more or less just going out there and having fun, which you should do. But unless you're a senior, I think you should take that time to try to work on stuff to improve your play.
Yeah.
And I've heard coaches on podcasts sort of have that criticism about the AAU, that kids in AAU, they don't get enough practice. They play a lot, but they don't get enough practice. And the practice is where you have that time to work.
Lesson development.
Yeah, development and whatnot.
Yeah.
But judging based on this, I was told that there were certain sections that were not available for sale, that they were reserved for certain people or maybe parents or league officials or something. I'm assuming it's like these places up here. You can see my mouse on the screen. Up here, along here. I think those were some of the places that were like that.
Okay.
I really like the setup. Look how the the stands kind of go almost to the court, right?
Mm.
One thing I didn't like about Glendale Arena was it was, you know, a hockey rink most of the year because the Phoenix Coyotes played there.
Uh-huh.
So they just brought the stands up to where the hockey rink would be. And then like 50 or 75 feet away from the wall would be where the court starts. So you're already sitting way far away from the court. It's like they have it set up to where as if the NBA is, I can, you know, if it's the NBA, I can understand like you have famous people and maybe you want to keep their distance, but this is just a high school thing. You know, it's not like they need to do anything like that.
I've always liked the pit. Like I like the darkness of the pit, where the game's lit, the court is lit.
Uh-huh.
I always liked that about a pit.
Oh, like around the stands is dark.
Yeah. They've another thing too about the pit. They hosted some tournaments over the summer at the pit. My daughter played there in just like 12 and under or something like that. It was for little kids, and they played at the pit, and I was surprised they actually did that. Like I don't know what it costs to rent a facility like this, but it seemed like it's a lot feasible than a place like over here in Arizona. It seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But going back to what we had said earlier about the 3A North being overrated, I think for sure this year it was. I think I think it really does depend year by year too, right? Like I could see Winter Rock in the next few years having a really good team, good enough to play with anybody if they continue to develop in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it does vary depending on the years and whatnot. Maybe it's just maybe we just happen to live in a time where there's just a down year. Even fan attendance was down this year. I noticed that just watching on television down at the state tournament. There was, you know, hardly anybody. I mean, people came out to watch Chinle and they came out to watch Tuba City, but it just seemed like I'm not sure if maybe people were maybe jaded by this year's team, or maybe the economy was just so bad that people just didn't want to spend the money to go down there to buy it, to, you know, pay for gas, to get a hotel, to pay for the meals down there. You know, it can get expensive, you know, especially if you've been following your team all year, right?
Yeah. Another people. So like a team that makes a lot of difference to fans is El Chase, man. El Chase, their people show up, man. Even if it's like at a Friday midday, man, the whole town will be there.
You know, you bring up, that's a good point too. El Chase has really good fans that follow their team, but for the North, I don't know. It just seemed like nobody was as enthusiastic as years past.
Uh-huh.
Someone kind of mentioned to me that maybe the reason why was because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That COVID sort of changed fan behavior.
Yeah.
And I could guess see that being partly true. I'm sure that does play a factor. But maybe it's just a fact that it's just a down year. I mean, but also gold is $3,000 an ounce too, so maybe that might be indicating that inflation and the cost of everything is just sort of yeah, see these seats right here, right above the Sonic sign. You know, I heard those were like you couldn't buy those. They were like reserved for the higher ups, I guess.
Yeah, the tickets for state was like what, $20 each or something like that for an adult.
Really?
Yeah. $20 each, and then you have to pay for parking too at the Memorial Coliseum.
Oh, really?
And that's like an additional almost $20 again too. I think it's like $15. So just for one person, man, it's like almost $50 right there.
You know it's going to get bad when I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years the AIA starts roping off certain sections of the stadium where you have to pay a little extra to sit there.
Like a concert or something.
Yeah, like a concert, right? it wouldn't surprise me if they did something like that. So now and then they'll start coming out with VIP packages.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do a meet and greet with the coaches or something. Get a picture with the AIA director.
With the referees.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's I don't know, it's getting I feel like to me it's getting more difficult for the average fan to start going out to the events, But looking at here, I'm really rather surprised at the fan attendance for this game. So it kind of makes me wonder, are the Gallup fans and the Kirtland Central fans just more dedicated and they're willing to travel to Albuquerque to watch this game, or it must be something it has to be something about like that.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at the 3A North and it just, even for even Monument Valley at home, when Holbrook played Monument Valley, it wasn't that, it wasn't that full, even for a home game.
It wasn't, yeah.
And the girls, though they kind of struggled, they still weren't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
They were fully capable of beating good teams if they could just watch their passes, make their free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach from Monument Valley girls would keep the good players, keep the good players.
Yeah.
I look back on that Monument Valley over Snowflake game, the last one, and I'm just I am still puzzled as to why the coach from Monument Valley, why she was playing the certain lineup that she had. It was quite odd to see. And I guess I have more questions than answers about that. But anyways, and I think maybe the fans from Monument Valley were kind of thinking the same thing, because I think I heard some fans getting mad at the Monument Valley coach from the stands.
Expressing their opinions,
yeah.
Yeah. Something that's different, too, between the Arizona and New Mexico games are that when the boys play like a home game or something, the girls go away. So, like, I would think that would affect the fan attendance because you got half the town, like, trying to support the boys, whatever, the girls is away. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe like it being that way when they have this game here just for Kirtland and Gallup, more of the fan base for the girls basketball team show up, and then maybe more of the boys because there's no game there for the boys, I guess. Type thing. Where Arizona, like the boys and the girls play at the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I didn't know they did that in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So I'm assuming it's like freshman girls, JV girls, and then varsity girls. They all play in a row, right?
Yeah.
I know in Arizona, like the freshman boys or girls would play like at the junior high somewhere, and the JV would play on the main court at the high school, right?
Arizona will have 6 games, and New Mexico will just have 3 games for that night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say New Mexico is more rural than Arizona is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rather strange, I guess.
Yeah, it seems more rural for like the rest of the state, but I feel like for like on the reservation, it's kind of centralized, like between Gallup and Kirtland, and places like in schools like Farmington. Farmington is 5A, which is bigger than these 2 conferences, and you got Pedro Vista, and you got schools like Shiprock right there, Tohatchee, Northland. Prep, Naval Prep, and it's just that little belt place right there. And you got the smaller schools, kind of like Rama and Tohajile, and some of them places like that are a little more rural.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. It's like I think that being in schools like that out there closer to those towns, they get a little more resources than a school like Mountain Valley, Chinle, or more central reservation. You know, I think that's kind of the difference maker for me. Is what I think. That's what I believe.
I do know that there's a majority of the Navajo reservations in Arizona, and then you have the little piece up there, what do they call it, Eastern Agency or something, that goes into New Mexico, and then a portion of it in Colorado and Utah, right, the smaller portion. So, Farmington. For a long time, I didn't realize that Farmington, Bloomfield, Aztec were basically they were all just one giant town.
Yeah.
My grandpa participated in roping over there back in like 2013 or something like that back then. And he was roping in Bloomfield. And, I didn't really know. I've always heard of Bloomfield, but I didn't really know where it was at. And here I found it was like on the other side of Farmington.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not a world traveler. I've never been past Gallup. Just kidding. I've been past Gallup, but I like to say that. One of the other things my friend had mentioned, he said when he watched this game live, he said they were playing really fast.
It looks fast paced. Yeah, it almost looks like the speed is like sped up in the video, but they are quick.
But then he said that he thought on video it looked like they were playing slower.
Really?
And
this looks fast to me.
And to me, his comment made sense because I remember going to the Winslow versus Holbrook game at Winslow, and the boys are playing really fast paced.
Yeah.
But then when I went back and watched it on YouTube, it seemed like they were playing a lot slower. So I kind of wondered if there's something with, I don't know, the cameras or whatever. The cameras and whatnot. Did it?
The gym size. The gym size makes a difference too.
Maybe the perspective of the camera or something makes it look slower. I'm not really too sure exactly.
Yeah, this is fast paced considered for New Mexico too, because New Mexico they don't use a shot clock violation.
Oh, they don't have shot clocks.
They don't have shot clock. Yeah,
I see. And
when you go watch their games over there, I watched the Gallup boys a couple of times, and it looked like it was slow, like you're waiting for something to happen before the time expired or whatever. But I don't know if they'll change that anytime soon. But yeah, it is different to watch a game over there. But yeah, these girls look like they have no problem getting past 35 or not exceeding 35 seconds.
Yeah, both these teams are really good, but I still think Phoenix Country Day would have torn these teams apart. However, we'll never know because they'll never play each other. So I guess it'll always be speculation.
Yeah, what I was talking about with I think I spoke with you and some other people too, was that like back in the day they had, I don't know what year this was, but Navajo Towns used to host some games. I believe they were the one that put it up, but it was a New Mexico versus Arizona.
Oh yeah, I
remember. An all-star.
They don't do it anymore?
They don't do that no more. I think that'd be cool to see, to bring back again too. Because this weekend there were some teams from New Mexico that were here. Mm-hmm. There were some players from. We played against a team of a Joe City team, the varsity boys here, and they had some boys from Wingate, and I think like maybe Rock Point or some of that. Mm-hmm. They had like a little all-star team of boys, and they weren't like all Navajos either. They were like some different kids, and it was different. Mm-hmm. They were pretty good. And then one of the teams, they're called Northern Elite. I think they ended up taking third, and they had some boys from Rehoboth and Gallup, I think. Yeah, Mymera and Gallup, and there's another school I forgot what it was, but yeah, they were pretty good. Mm-hmm. That's like the only time you get to really kind of see like that type of game, like where some New Mexico players play against Arizona, a kind of team like that. But yeah, I remember they used to have that All-Star game, and it was neat. They played like 4 games or something across the res. Maybe that's why your auntie said that. She thinks New Mexico was better. Maybe they won majority of those games back then.
No, it had nothing to do with that. She was telling me that out of all the years that she had done high school broadcast, I think she told me she's seen a lot of girls from New Mexico programs play like D3, D2 college basketball, stuff like that. I think she said, I'm pretty sure there were a couple that went Division 1. I know she can tell you all about it. I know, but one time she was telling me that she felt that there were more girls from New Mexico that go on to play at Division 3, Division 1, 2, and 3 colleges than they do here from Arizona. And she had her and I had this conversation like 10 years ago, and she was naming some players, some girl players. I don't remember what their names were, but she was telling me how good they were at that time. I can't really think of any. The only girl player that I can think of that recently went Division 1 from around here. I know Shondine Armeo, right? She played for, was that a Division 1 school? She played for San Diego. Was it San Diego State?
San Diego State, yeah.
I think that's Division 1.
Yeah.
Another person that comes to mind is Allison Holiday. She played for UNLV. So those are the only 2 that come to mind as recent players. I think Greg was saying that there was a girl from Tuba City from like back in the year 2000 or something that played for, what do you say, Texas A&M?
Yeah. I forgot her name. Yeah, I can't remember what he said exactly.
So we do get some players, mostly girls. I don't think, I think very rarely have they've gotten a Navajo basketball player go play Division 1. I know, Bobby Manheimer played at Lamar University, but I don't know. I think maybe they're Division 1 AA, like the same division as NAU.
Yeah, there was a guy named Matt Vale too that played. I forget who he played for. Maybe Grants or somebody, but he played for El Paso, University of El Paso. UTEP.
Didn't they say there was a person from Canada that walked on to the University of Arizona and made the team?
Football.
Oh, it was football?
That was football.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was Roderick Denitzo.
Uh-huh.
And then another guy named Bobby Manheimer too. He played for Navajo Pine, same time as Matt Vale, I think. And I forget who he played for. I think it was, I forgot.
Was there another Bobby Manheimer?
No, I'm sorry. Not Bobby Manheimer. I'm thinking, what's his name? Oh, shoot, I forget his name. Jarvis Smolahan. Jarvis Smolahan.
I know Cordero Bennett played professional basketball in Brazil.
Yeah. We have Michelle Tom right here in Winslow. She played for ASU.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so Division 1 is it's a whole nother level, of play, and it's sort of turned into a legit like semi-professional with the NIL ruling, NIL rules now, and I also recently found out that the NCAA will no longer consider junior college. Your time spent as a junior college, it will not affect your eligibility.
Yeah. JUCO ball is not considered. Yeah.
Which is crazy now. And I was listening to a podcast, and these NBA players that are retired, they were talking about that rule change. And one of the guys, I can't remember which player it was. He was saying that he should go back and play because he played 2 years of junior college ball. So he has 2 years of eligibility left. So maybe he should go back and play.
Yeah. And some of these players too, some of these really good players were pretty old in high school too, and they made some rule changes for that. I think I heard a podcast too where one of the NBA players said he was 21 years old when he was in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it was like that old, which is crazy, man.
Well, I know here in Holbrook, I think the oldest they'll allow you to go to school is, I think, 19.
19.
And then after that, they send you to the alternative school.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure how. I think legally in Arizona, you're allowed to stay in high school until you're 21, I think it was. But I believe most people don't allow students to go that far or be a part of the student body at that age. You know, I think at that point they'll just tell them to get their GED or something, or maybe high school's not your thing. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if someone. I guess if you're good, they'll make exceptions. Yeah. I don't. There's a weird thing about high school sports in that people are willing to bend the rules to have a good program. I don't really get why. Like Texas football, for example, whole communities rally around their team, and it's like a big deal over there. And at the end of the day, it's just high school sports. I guess maybe the parents want the state championship more than players do sometimes.
Yep.
I think what's cool about Kirtland Central's team, their consistency, they have like the most state championships for girls, right, in New Mexico. I think what's neat about their program is how these girls are consistently able to deal with the pressure, especially within their community, you know, and to have a consistent program like that. I don't know if this is exactly true, but to me, it seems like, you know, a lot of the teams from the 3A North, they just can't handle the pressure of the whole entire community rallying around their team and wanting you to win so badly. And to me, maybe that was, I would speculate that maybe that was a part of Chin Lee's problem was the whole entire community of Chin Lee and Mini Farms and the Kajugay and wherever up there, all those people that have, you know, ties to that school, you know, they were really rallying behind Chin Lee. Because I don't think Chin Lee has won. Did they won a state championship, what, like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
And then before that, I don't think they have a whole lot of state championships, right?
No, I don't think so.
So I think the town was just, you know, really, you know, wanting them to win this championship. And maybe it just kind of got maybe the girls couldn't handle it. Because I know I spoke with a coach a few weeks ago or whatever, and they were telling me that for a lot of these players, the parents want them to win so badly that the kids just can't handle the pressure from their parents. You know, but imagine having a whole entire community. And I think that was the theme of Friday Night Lights. Not only the book, but the movie too. That, you know, the whole entire town in that, was it in Odessa, Permian or whatever? Odessa. Yeah. That whole entire town was
Midland, Odessa.
Yeah, the people there wanted them to win so badly that the young high school kids just couldn't handle the pressure of being perfect, I guess, and winning, you know. So I think it takes a special group of young men and women who can, you know, are able to handle that and go through and win, you know. Like imagine being like Blue Ridge before, you know, when they had their coach that won all those state championships for Blue Ridge back in, I think this is the 90s and late 80s, I think it was. You know, imagine having to to live in a community where your dad won a state championship and your brother won a state championship, and it's like, everybody, at least somebody in the community has won. So they there's like this expectation to do well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think having that expectation also really helps your program. If you come from a school where they've only won one state championship in the whole entire school's history, or they've never won a state championship, it's sort of, kids don't have that expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you come from if you go to a school where, everybody's brother or sister won a state championship and your dad won a state championship, and, everybody has somebody, you sort of have this, you grow up with this expectation of having to uphold that tradition.
Yeah.
When I think of Joseph City, when I was there, a state championship in football or just having a successful program was sort of a new thing, because I believe Joe City was like terrible in football in the 90s. And I think they were pretty terrible in the 80s. I think they had some good years where they did play competitively, but by the time I got to the varsity, we had Joe City had won the state championship in 2002. Also, Joe City got their, it wasn't their first state championship, because they did win. I think they won the state championship in 1977 or something like that. But they had their first state championship in many years, back in 1999. So a lot of my friends, their brothers were on that 99 team, or their brothers were on the 2002 state championship team, right? And since 1999, Joe City had this consistent, winning record and this sort of dominance. And at the time, it was the 1A North. So I guess we had this expectation of having to uphold that tradition and continue to win ourselves. So, so like I said, I think when you come from a tradition of winning, you sort of have this, this new motivation to continue that. And I think, I see glimpses of that with Holbrook boys.
Mm-hmm.
They've had, a really successful season since maybe 2003 or something.
Yeah.
Where they've had.
Yeah, they've been consistent in definitely the last decade or so.
So I think when high school boys, they come to the school here, they have this expectation to, at least win their conference, right? In this case, it'd be the East. Whereas the girls, Holbrook girls basketball traditionally hasn't been that great of a program. I think even when my aunt played basketball back in '85, I don't think they were that great either back then. I'll have to ask her. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they weren't that good as well. So, but even in the '80s, I believe Holbrook basketball was actually pretty good too. They were, I think they made the playoffs a lot. My dad went to junior high at Delcon, and I believe my dad said that they won like the junior high state championship across country at Delcon back in 1980, I think, or 79. My aunt is really big into, because she was a runner herself. So my dad has this photograph that was taken after they had won the state championship, the junior high.
Really?
And there's all these guys on there, and I wish I remembered their names. Maybe one day I'll bring on the podcast and show it to everybody. But my dad was naming off all his people, and then one day my aunt came to my parents' house, and she saw that picture, and she knew every single person in that picture. And I believe a lot of those guys came to Holbrook and played for the basketball team as well. I'll have to bring that sometime and show that picture on air, and maybe people who watch it will get to see or see them. Maybe they'll recognize them as well.
So that was like what year did you say? Like
I think that was
80?
1980.
80.
Mm-hmm.
That's way before OJ. Those guys.
Yeah, I think OJ went to Holbrook in 1990 or 91, something like that. Yeah, my parents were the class of 85, so I think they were here 81, 82, or 82, 83, 84, and 85.
Yeah, my uncle's talking about Ray Shavy too being he was a really good runner. They said that Snowflake.
Oh yeah, my uncle Jerry Shaby, I believe he still holds the record at Winslow for the fastest 2 mile.
Oh really?
And I was told that record will never be broken because they no longer do the 2 mile. They do like the 1600 meter or something like that. I know he had the record for a long time here in Holbrook, but there was a guy that broke it here at Holbrook, I think, in 2006. He was a cross country runner. I used to know his name, but I can't remember his name anymore.
Jonathan Harmon?
Yeah, Jonathan Harmon. And I remember Jonathan Harmon because my cousin Douglas was on the Hopi cross country team that won, I think, in 06. And my mom and I went down there to the state championship to watch that cross country meet because my cousin was in it. And I remember there was only one person from Holbrook that made it, and it was Jonathan Harmon. And he came in first place for that.
Yeah, he was good. He was there when I was in high school too. That's all he did, man. He just ran.
But anyways, yeah, it was. Wow, I just brought up the 80s, huh? It'd be you when you live in a small town, you get to hear a lot about some of the local legends from a long time ago.
I think the 80s might have been like the Stingley guy. I forgot his name, but he was pretty good, I heard, back then.
There was another guy. What was his name? My dad, I met him at Romo's one time, and I look like my dad, so he assumed that my dad was my dad, right?
Yeah.
And he gave me his phone number to give to my dad, and my dad didn't even remember him. So everybody remembered him, but he didn't remember him out. So, but yeah, it was. I guess Holbrook in the 80s was a pretty interesting time. My mom, they talk about, because she went to the dorm back in the 80s, and they sort of talk about. I guess they had a lot of fun. I guess back in the 80s. Wow, 30-29. Was it the third quarter? Yeah, it was. I wish I remember that guy's name. Maybe he'll come back to me later on the podcast. But, yeah, I think it was the 88 team or maybe the 86 team. I think that was the last time Holbrook won a state championship in baseball. I know one of the Baldonados was on that team. My baseball coach in high school, his brother was on the last Winslow team to win the state championship, and that was like in baseball, and that was like sometime in the 70s or something like that. I'm not sure if Winslow's won the last 25. I'm pretty sure they haven't won the last 25 years. But there's been some good players in the last 25 years. I know one that comes to mind from Winslow, Jordan Payne. I know he was the quarterback for Winslow, but he was also really good at baseball. I remember Joe City put together a summer league team or a little league team, and I remember we were part of the Winslow Little League. And they had some. I didn't realize that Winslow takes their baseball seriously. I'm not sure if they still do, but back then they did. I'm sure they still do. But I remember all my friends, they knew about Jordan Payne. I think my first year there, I think Jordan Payne was like, I think he was just young enough to be in our league. So like that year was like his last year in our league.
Uh-huh.
And I think he was an intern like 15 or something, whatever age it was to get out of our league. But I remember seeing him, play back then. He was I don't know, from my perspective, he was like a grown man playing against us little kids. But he's now the football coach, right, for Winslow?
I don't know. I don't really know him.
I believe he's the football coach for them right now. But I remember he went to, I believe he played baseball for Yavapai College. Yeah, there was Joseph City, we were in the White Mountain League, and at that time we were pretty bad at football, right? Our 8th grade year, we played against Sholo Junior High, and that team we played in junior high, they went on to win the state championship when they were seniors.
Okay.
And I remember when we played them, they were so much bigger than us, so much faster. I don't know if if they were accelerating on the puberty or something. I'm not too sure, but we seemed like little kids compared to them. I remember Travis Trickey from Round Valley. I believe he ended up getting recruited and played for UNLV for football. I want to say when he was a senior, Travis Trickey at that time, I think he held the record for most career tackles or something like that at linebacker.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it's been broken since then, but at that time, back in 2008, I believe that was like his sort of record at the time. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the case.
Did you say it was Round Valley?
Yeah. And he went on and played for UNLV. I'm not sure if he played like his whole career there. Maybe he was like a year or two. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know. What happens to a lot of these players. Another one that comes to mind too from Sholo, Skip Holiday. He was another one. I remember him being a good wrestler in junior high, and he was also the quarterback for Sholo when we were in junior high as well.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, I'm naming off these old players. I wonder if maybe they'll hear this and they'll send an email or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, what do you think of this game so far?
It's a pretty good game. A lot of defense, man. A lot of turnovers, and they were pressing. Seemed like the defense brought Kirtland back, but Gallup is starting to kind of pull away right here. But they're big, man. Gallup's big is the big difference, so, man.
Yeah. Number... Is it 34? She's pretty tall.
Yeah.
From Gallup. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how tall his players are. Maybe 5'8" or something, or 5. There's some of them are kind of short too. I know the average height in the WNBA is 6 foot.
6 foot.
So I think if you gauge it based on that particular physical characteristic, I think maybe that might be a gauge as to whether or not you might be able to make it at a Division I college or not. But girls, I've always been told girls basketball is so much different than men's. Like Kim Mulkey, the coach for LSU, she played for was it like Louisiana Fayette or something? Some small school, some small Division I school in Louisiana. And I know Kim Mulkey is pretty short. I think she's like want to say 5'5" or something like that. But I know Kim Mulkey in the 80s was a really good player back then. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to do player evaluations because I know that professionals, scouts, and whatnot, they really like to focus on the physical part of it. How tall are you? How high can you jump? What's your speed? You know?
Yeah.
And I guess to a certain degree, maybe you would say that that's a good measuring stick to start off, but that doesn't necessarily amount to what kind of success you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every year in the NFL draft, scouts for the NFL, they overemphasize the speed and the size and whatnot of these players, but yet they can never consistently find players who have the longevity and the ability to remain in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think the average career in the NFL, I think, is 3 years.
Wow.
And I think you have to play for 4 years or 5 years to qualify for the I think it's the NFL retirement and their medical, like, insurance or whatever it is they have.
Yeah, medical coverage.
Yeah, so, and a lot of these players don't make it that far
long.
enough to qualify for it.
That's crazy.
But granted, football is a very physical game, so I can see why. I mean, it's so physical. People are getting brain damage from that game.
Yeah. Yeah, the only measure they have in here is number 32, Summer Joe. She's 5'10", it says.
Wow, that's pretty tall for her.
And the other girl, white hair, number 34, she's taller than her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, number 40 is the one right there on that. She's probably like 5'11" or something at least.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I look at every year is, it's mostly for the boys. If I'm taller than most of the team, then that's a problem. And I want to say this year for Holbrook, I think maybe Chase Salabai and maybe Travis were the only ones that were taller than me.
Mm-hmm.
I know Chase Salabai for sure was taller than me. But then again, I was wearing my boots. My boots have like a 2-inch lift on it.
Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah, it's just, height is just it's something that you can't just, it's something you have to be born with,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm like a couple inches above average height. I think what the average height for a man is 5'8". So, and I'm 5'11", so I'm just a little bit above average. But I wish I was taller. My brother, I think, is like 6'2". And when he puts his boots on, he's like freaking way taller than me. So I have to tell him to wear some flip-flops when I'm around him. I think that was a backcourt.
Looks like it. Oh, this game is sped up, huh? It is sped up. Like really fast paced.
Yeah, I think that 3-point line, the college 3-point line, is sort of throwing them off because it seems like all the girls are shooting at the NBA mark there. What do you think about Coach Perkins saying that they should move the 3-point line back for high school?
For high school?
Uh-huh.
Man, I don't know about that.
I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable to move it back to where it is on that court.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but then again, they don't really make a whole lot of threes. They shoot a lot of threes,
Attempt a lot,
right? But I don't think they make enough. They don't make enough to justify moving the 3-point line back. If they were like Steph Curry and we're like making 12 threes a game or something,
Yeah.
or whatever the amount is. You know, the only team that I saw that shot a lot of threes and made a lot of threes was Valley Christian. Man, they could shoot those 3-pointers. I was like astonished at how many they shot and how many they made. So yeah, it looked like
Gallup's starting to get the upper hand right here. It seem like.
and I was told that Kirtland Central had beaten Gallup twice during the regular season or something like that, or 3 times.
I think twice, and I think Gallup beat them in the conference play in the championship game. But going into into state, Kirtland still kept the number 1 seed.
Yeah, these two teams, they definitely would have beat every 3A North team. They could have beat every 3A North team with just 4 players on the court. I just think, I hate to say it, but I just feel like the 3A North they were just not very good this year. You know, I said earlier that flag high I thought 4A basketball was, you know, maybe a half step different than 3A. You know, I say that, but at the same time, I don't think any 3A North team would have gone very far in the 3A playoff or the 4A state playoffs.
What do you think about Chinley playing flag? Who would win that one?
Well, I think it'd be close at first. Maybe Chinley. No, I think Chinley would probably beat him by like 10 or 15. Not Chinley. I think Flag High would beat Chinley by like at least 10 points.
I think so.
And even if it was close, even if Chinley was winning, Chinley would do something at the very end. A lot of turnovers because they can't do the full court press. And then Flag High would come back and beat him in like how Payson beat Chinley. You know, Chinley was just so... I think they were just so lucky to have won all those games. They had some close games, especially against Tuba City. You know, they got lucky that Sholo played really bad in the second half against Chinley, and Chinley was able to come back, I think, from a 10-point deficit to beat Sholo. Yeah, I guess I'm saying is the North and Chinley, I thought were just, in hindsight, it's easy to say now that they were overrated. But at the time during the season, during the middle of the season, I thought Chinley was great and that they were going to do really well this year and be the favorite and win. But as I did get to see more games that they had played, I did notice the inconsistency of them taking care of the basketball, making smart decisions. And instead, I saw a lot of bad passes, bad mistakes on a consistent basis from them. And I guess it's okay to play like that kind of during the regular season, but when you're in the playoffs, there's not really a whole lot of room to make really bad mistakes like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So, but I didn't follow Chinley. I didn't follow every game or anything like that. The only games I ever saw of Chinley were the ones that I saw on the internet, right? But just, I think this year, watching more 4A basketball, watching this game, Kirtland and Gallup, seeing these other players, Phoenix Country Day, really opened my eyes. It really opened my eyes to see how I guess I would say how behind a lot of these teams are. You know, those two girls from Phoenix Country Day, they were really good. They could handle the ball, they could shoot the ball, they could drive the ball. They were tall, they were fast. They were, they were beating Paige. That one girl in particular from Phoenix Country Day, she was beating. She was,
She could do whatever she wanted, man.
yeah, Lacuria. She was just like going right past Lacuriazi at will to score those, these easy 2 points, against them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other girl, I wish I remember the names. She could dribble the ball, she could shoot, she was fast. It was, that type of play. You don't see that very often at the lower levels, I guess, in the 2A especially. And I think they were really lucky. Those two girls, I think, could have played anywhere in the state at any level.
Mm-hmm.
So Phoenix Country Day was lucky to have those two girls play for them specifically.
Yeah.
I looked at the top, I think I said top 20 or top 20 girls basketball players in the state. You know that girl, the senior from Flag High? She was ranked number 10.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. She was ranked number 10, but I think she got an offer to play at Pima Community College. Obviously I have no idea what other offers she got, but maybe, quite possibly, since junior college doesn't affect eligibility, maybe she was kind of thinking, well, I can go to Pima, and if I do better there, I could possibly go to an even better, maybe a Division I school, maybe have some kind of NIL type of demand that they could be put on her,
Yeah.
on myself. Because I heard that about football, that a lot of these college athletes are probably going to start going to junior college instead of going straight to a Division I program, because for one, junior college doesn't affect eligibility. They can do really good in junior college, build a following, and then hire an agent, an NIL agent, to try to get some kind of deal to go to a major university, and then only play 1 year and then go straight to the pros.
Okay.
Because you have to be, they have an age requirement for the NFL. I think it's like 21 or something.
Oh, really?
Or you have to play 2 years of college football to be eligible for the draft, or you have to be like 21 or something like that. So these guys, these people were speculating that since junior college is no longer affects eligibility, that a lot of these good players are just going to opt out of going to a Division I school, playing junior college, getting more experience, and then trying to use their name to make more money. And all power to them, but this whole NIL type of thing in college or in college sports, I guess that's just what happens when, just like the AIA, and maybe the AIA could have something that happened to the NCAA where, the NCAA was greedy for a really long time. They didn't want to pay players. They used the excuse of amateurism. They did not want to pay the players, but yet the NCAA was making these multi-billion-dollar deals with ESPN and, everybody, making all this money off the players' names, their images, their jerseys, the college football games on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Even the coach for these teams, they were allowed to go off and be in commercials and take endorsements and all this stuff. But, if you bought lunch for your player, if somebody bought lunch for a college basketball player, that was an NCAA violation, and they could be, given a penalty for that. So, that greed from the NCAA, create a situation now where now they have the NIL, and a lot of these players, are using their name and everything, and they're just sort of kind of ruining the tradition of college sports. Like that one guy from UNLV, the quarterback, that I think he only played 1 game or 2 games or something like that, or 3 games, and UNLV was undefeated. And I guess they had the best start in their college football history or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the starting quarterback decides to not play anymore because UNLV did not give like $100,000 or something that he had said that the UNLV program verbally committed to him to come to UNLV.
Uh-huh.
So because they didn't give it to him, he decided to not play, and now he's going to enter the transfer portal. The other thing too is the transfer portal in college sports. I know they were saying they have like 6,000 people in the transfer portal now.
Wow.
It's just, I get it. These players shouldn't be exploited like that, but they do need to have some kind of regulation for that because it's starting to get, ridiculous for a lot of these teams. It's getting to the point where it's kind of like the situation we have now in 3A where these private schools, they can recruit, right? But these public schools can't.
Mm-hmm.
In college sports, these big universities with all these donors and everything, they can afford to give a highly ranked recruit $1 million to come to the school or whatever it is, whatever the demands are. They have like ridiculous requests like $1 million, full paid expenses for their family to go to every single game, and a Lamborghini. Like they have requests like that to go to your school, and these colleges will, mostly in football, these college football schools, they'll capitulate and give them, give them that money simply because, it helps their program out. But if you kind of think about it, they might be giving this young player $1 million and a Lamborghini, but the university expects to get back 10 times what they gave this young man or woman from all the TV deals, endorsements, etc. Right?
Yep.
So, I guess there still is a level of greed there too.
Yeah, and that's going to be especially happening right now with March Madness and all that, man.
Oh yeah, it's, and I think this whole NIL thing, it's getting to the point where I think it could potentially threaten all the other sports like tennis, badminton, all the sports that no one knows about. Because there are a lot of athletes that are there that truly are there to get an education, and to play the sport that they're good at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could affect it. I know that one of the big problems when Arizona or when the Pac-12 dissolved and most of the teams in the Pac-12 went to the Big 12, and then I think it was like USC and UCLA went to the Big 10, Oregon went to the Big 10. One of the problems they had was that they were saying, the water polo team from USC, now they have to travel all the way to Rutgers, New Jersey, go to New Jersey to play Rutgers. That's like a so many hour flight and all this time away from their studies, just because they decided that the money that they were going to receive, the TV rights that the Pac-12 fumbled, and because nobody wanted to watch the truth was nobody wanted to watch the Pac-12. The Pac-12, ever since USC kind of lost their program in football, there was no real reason to watch the Pac-12 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, the Pac-12 was unable to get any type of TV deal, meaningful TV deal, to get USC and UCLA to stay. And USC said, why do we have to divide all the money up and whatnot to all these other schools like Washington State and Oregon State, these schools that, really struggle and don't bring a whole lot of money to the table. Why do we have to split it with them when we can go to the Big 10, and make all this money because the Big 10 has Ohio State and Michigan. I guess could you throw West Virginia in there, I guess? And then Oregon went with him as well, so it's college sports has gotten to the point where it's certainly lost its tradition of amateurism, and now it's just, I'm at the point where I'm just saying, what, the federal government should just end all funding for schools that want to engage in sports like that. If schools want to continue to do sports the way it is right now, then they should just go private. Use the money that is generated from the students' tuition and whatnot to fund a program rather than forcing colleges to spend all this money to make this really nice campus to try to attract students and charge $50,000 a year, for these kids to go there. And these kids are taking out student loans to go there and whatnot. And, just because they want to, and for some reason, they have one of the best football programs in the country, but yet all that money they generate in football doesn't even go back. Only a small percentage of it goes back to the school. And these schools are complaining that they don't have enough money and they have to raise tuition. I just think they should keep it out and just go back. If these schools want to continue to engage in it, they just need to be private, like Harvard and Yale, and allow the donors and the student body to pay for it rather than forcing the American taxpayer. But enough on that. Go back to this game. So it just ended 51-41. So yeah, it was an interesting game. What are your thoughts on this game? At the end.
Yeah, it seemed like Kirtland got tired at the end. It looked like they were hustling and trying to play defense the whole time, and Gallup controlled the ball a little more than Kirtland did. Yeah, in the post, man, she made a big difference. But Kirtland be back. Their program, like you said, like they're always consistent, so they'll be back for sure. They got a freshman girl that's just now starting too, so look forward to her playing for a while, man. She'll get some state titles.
Mm-hmm.
Naval Prep girls took state too for the 3A division. And it seemed like it wasn't a whole lot of. It seemed like looked like they won it pretty easy, and they played Page, and they lost to Page. So there's a little bit of comparison compared to Arizona team, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was told about this game was that Kirtland Central, they didn't have a lot of shots fall for them. And that was one of the reasons that they ended up losing by 10. I think it was. Sometimes the ball just doesn't go in.
Yeah.
And that's just unfortunate when that happens.
Sometimes one of your best shooters just has the off night, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but to Kirtland Central and to all the other teams that lost in the playoffs, I guess I'll just leave you with what my dad always says: "There's always next year."
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on this?
No. It's a good game.
Okay, well, I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation this evening. We, were able to get together and on St. Patrick's Day and go through this game, and hopefully everyone got to see, some of the playoff action that happened in New Mexico. And please, like and subscribe. Please let everybody know that we have a podcast. We want to bring more content to you out there. More engaging content, more meaningful content, and please spread the word. But until next time, this is the Sports on I40 podcast. Thank you very much for watching.
Good night.